Part 3 of the 2019-20 law changes is going to cover the new rules regarding changes made to the handling clause in Law 12. While IFAB has not fixed everything, it has made some very clear definitions that should take some, emphasis on that word some, of the arguing that goes on over what is or is not a handball out of the game. We're going to go over each change in interpretation on handling individually. There's a lot to cover here, so be patient as we try to clarify each statement in the laws. First off, one thing that has not changed on handling is that anytime a player deliberately handles the ball, it remains an offense. The wording of Law 12 has always maintained this definition. With all of the new interpretations added to the law this year, IFAB wanted to ensure that there was no confusion that any of these new clauses had any impact on the traditional definition of handling. Soccer is played without the hands and arms except for goalkeepers, and field players who deliberately use their hand or arm to play the ball are still guilty of a direct free kick offense. Several of the new clauses for handling apply specifically to attacking players and accidental plays of the ball with the hands or arms. The law now reads as follows. It is an offense if a player gains possession or control of the ball after it has touched their hand or arm and then scores into the opponent's goal, creates a goal-scoring opportunity, or scores into the opponent's goal directly from the hand or arm, even if accidental, including by the goalkeeper. Notice the wording here is that the ball merely touches the player's arm or hand, which then leads to the player scoring either directly from the handling or from a subsequent touch preceded by the handling, or for creating a goal-scoring opportunity for a teammate. This touch does not need to be deliberate for this to be an offense. The touch merely needs to create a goal or goal-scoring opportunity. The purpose of this change is to completely eliminate any doubt of whether contact with the arm should perhaps be permitted in the buildup of scoring a goal, even if that handling is not deliberate. Anytime there is contact of the ball with an attacker's arm or hand that leads to a goal or scoring chance, this is a direct free kick offense for the other team, and a goal should not be counted. Please note that the caution for using the hand or arm to score a goal remains in place. In light of this clarification from IFAB, it's important to consider that a caution should only be administered if the referee feels that the use of the arm in the situation was deliberate and or cynical. The issuing of a caution for using the hand or arm to score, therefore, is subject to the opinion of the referee. The next clause in Law 12, with regards to handling clarification, reads as follows. It is usually an offense if a player touches the ball with their hand or arm when the hand or arm has made their body unnaturally bigger, and when the hand or arm is above or beyond their shoulder level, unless the player deliberately plays the ball, which then touches that hand or arm above their shoulder. Ever since the early 2000s, U.S. Soccer has advised officials that making yourself bigger can be a handling offense. If a player brings their arms away from their body, increasing the width of their natural silhouette, and subsequently blocks a pass or shot, that would be considered a handling offense. What we are seeing here is codification of that interpretation within the laws of the game. Unfortunately, IFAB has not clarified how far the arm has to be away from the body to be making oneself bigger or in an unnatural position. David Elleray, a member of IFAB's technical subcommittee, has stated that IFAB felt that forcing players to defend crosses with their arms behind their back was not appropriate. So clearly, a player can have their arms in a, quote, natural position while defending that does not make them bigger, have the ball strike their arm, and the offense not be a handball offense. What distance from the body becomes unnatural? Alas, that's a gray area that remains open to the opinion of the referee. IFAB has gone a step further and has clearly indicated that if the hand or arm is raised above shoulder level and contact with the ball occurs, it is almost always a handling offense. The principle here is that the arm being raised above the shoulder is nearly always an unnatural arm position, and IFAB explains in its notes that raising the arm above the shoulder is a decision to, quote, take a risk. IFAB also clearly includes in its notes on this change that cases where a player is sliding is clearly included. The top hand should not be raised above the level of the shoulder, and doing so is taking a risk. The exception provided for is if the player whose arm or hand makes contact is the one who also played the ball last. This is a reference to a player who is deliberately playing the ball but misplays it into their own arm raised above their shoulder. In these cases, the contact with the arm is usually not deliberate. Remember, deliberate does still count. And even though the player has taken a risk, IFAB does not want a player punished for a simple misplay of the ball into his or her own arm. IFAB adds one additional clarifying statement to this section of Law 12. Quote, "The above offenses apply even if the ball touches a player's hand or arm directly from the head or body, including the foot, of another player who is close. If the ball comes off a different player, other than the one who has the hand or arm touch the ball, and the offending player has made themselves unnaturally bigger or has the arm above the shoulder level, it is still an offense. Remember, if the player plays the ball into his or her own arm or hand, no offense, and if the arm is within the player's natural silhouette, no offense." The final section of these clarifications state the following. Quote, "It is not usually an offense if the ball touches a player's hand or arm directly from the player's own head or body, including the foot, directly from the head or body, including the foot of another player who is close, if the hand or arm is close to the body and does not make the body unnaturally bigger, or when a player falls and the hand or arm is between the body and the ground to support the body, but not extended laterally or vertically away from the body." The first bullet point reiterates the exception to the prior clause. If the ball comes off the player's own head, body, or foot and hits them in their own arm or hand, this is usually not an offense. Usually because the player could still deliberately play the ball, and in such cases would then be guilty of handling. The second bullet point is going to be confusing to a lot of people, and admittedly IFAB probably could and should have made this a bit clearer. If the ball comes off an opposing player who's very close and touches a player in the hand or arm, and the hand or arm are in a position that's not making the player unnaturally bigger, it is not an offense. This bullet point has to consider the position of the arm in making this decision, and that is subject to the opinion of the referee. However, if that arm is considered to be in a natural position, IFAB understands the player oftentimes does not have time to adjust when the ball is played by another player who's nearby, and therefore notes this would not be an offense. The third bullet point clearly indicates a non-deliberate touch of the ball with the hand or arm within the player's natural silhouette is not an offense. The final bullet point clearly exempts plays on which a player is falling or sliding and the ball contacts the down hand. IFAB confirms that, in its notes, placing a hand down when sliding is normal position to provide support for the body, and contact with that hand would not be considered an infraction. Keep in mind that the down hand contact still must not be deliberate. If somebody then swats the ball away with the down hand, that would be deliberate and would be an offense. This bullet point also reinforces if the up hand is extended vertically or laterally away from the body, that is raised above the shoulder, and contact is made, that is a handling offense. Now let's look at some video examples of potential handling violations and talk about how these new interpretations apply. The first example shows a case of making yourself bigger, or extending the silhouette with the arm in an unnatural position. The blue player's cross is blocked by the red defender's arm extended from the body, not at his side. The defender's silhouette is clearly increased by the position of the arm, and it blocks the cross from coming in. This is a handling offense and should result in a direct free kick. In this case, the ball does clearly make contact with the defender's arm. However, the arm is tucked in close to the body. Consider if the arm was removed from this situation, would the cross have been blocked anyway in a legal manner? If the answer is yes, then the player has not made themselves bigger, and there is no infraction. There is no offense on this play.
Now everyone is ready. Samyedov, useful corner too, and an inquiry about possible handball. The referee has spotted it. Complaints from the Spanish players. But Björn Kuipers, one of the most experienced officials in Europe, says penalty against Piqué.
And without a doubt, Zuba, their target on set pieces, just gets a little bit of distance.
This clip demonstrates the clear language in Law 12 that now dictates when the arm is above the shoulder and contact with the ball occurs, it should be a handling offense most of the time. In this clip, the defender clearly has the arm above shoulder level and blocks a shot from an opposing player. This is a handling offense, and the referee correctly awards a penalty kick.
Come on, go!
Here we have a rare example of the arm being clearly above the shoulder, contact between the arm and the ball, and this not being a handling infraction. The white defender clearly kicks the ball into his own arm. Even though the arm is not in a natural position, the defender should not be punished for misplaying the ball inadvertently into his own arm. Furthermore, awarding a penalty kick to blue here would not be remotely within the realm of fairness. The white player is simply trying to clear the ball over his own head. His arm actually blocks that clearance and leaves his team at risk of being scored on. It clearly is not what he wants to happen. Back in 2010, France advanced to the World Cup thanks to a controversial missed handling decision in the UEFA playoff with Ireland. France's Thierry Henry handled a lob into the penalty area, then crossed for teammate William Gallas to score and send France to the World Cup. This was a handling offense that was really not in dispute at the time. The only reason this goal stood was that the offense was screened from the referee and his AR failed to provide needed assistance. But this incident also clearly demonstrates an act in which contact with the arm leads to a scoring chance. Say Henry's arm had been tucked inside his torso instead and the ball caught his arm inadvertently, but he still managed to cross for Gallas to score. This would still be an offense under the new wording.
Ball given away. Taken on that right side. Polo in the box. Looking to cut it back. And it goes in. The sub, Rui Diaz.
Well, now we're going to get a look at it, and I wonder if the delay on the replay was because it's... Well, I can't even see from there. Oh, and the way he just throws his hand behind his back, it makes me think it is. That is a handball.
Wow.
I believe. See if we can slow it down here. Oh, that's a handball.
Yes, yes, yes.
In the 2016 Copa America, Peru's Raul Rui Diaz scored this goal against Brazil that, on replay, oh, the days before VAR, how quaint, showed the ball coming off Rui Diaz's hand. Under our new definitions, this goal cannot stand regardless of the opinion of whether Rui Diaz played this ball with his arm deliberately or not. A goal cannot be scored directly from contact with an attacking player's arm. In spite of that black and white clarification, this clip does provide a bit of gray area when considering whether this is also misconduct by Rui Diaz. A caution should be given if the player uses the arm to score deliberately. Both sides of the argument could be argued for here. On one hand, if Rui Diaz is leaving his arm out there and deliberately redirecting this ball into the goal with it, he should be booked for unsporting behavior. On the other hand, if you feel this cross is just behind him and he doesn't have time to get his arm out of the way, then no booking should be given. That judgment comes down to the opinion of the referee.
He went down in goal, but you have to say, although Aguero had that chance.
Good look by Salvio to get inside of Magnuson. Salvio now for the byline, and that looks like a handball from our angle. The fans are shouting for it. It's been given as a corner.
Well, it definitely hit his hand. Now, whether that was intentional, because I think it took a deflection initially from him when he made the challenge.
They are checking it right now in the VAR room, we're being told.
I don't think that's a penalty.
Well, I talked with Essie Bahamas, one of the FIFA instructors for this tournament, and he has told me that typically on a play like this, when the defender slides and takes a risk of sliding, it'll be called handling when it's the upper hand that stops the cross. But if it's the lower hand, it's considered part of the defender's body in a natural position.
As Dr. Joe explains in the audio from this clip, regardless of whether the ball deflects off the defender first or not, this is not a handling offense. If the down hand or arm on a player who's going to ground makes contact with the ball, this is considered a natural position and should not be called. If the Iceland defender here had been reaching with his down arm laterally, and that was where the contact was, different story. But as long as that down hand is in a position expected to provide support for the body, no infraction.
Facing 1-on-1, Lee Young, finding Guardado with the cross, there's a handball, that's a penalty kick!
I think it was a penalty kick, Jorge. What intensity? We were talking about intensity. One action on Guillermo Ochoa's box, and now we go to the other side with a great possibility for Mexico. Mexico keeps possession of the ball. Andres Guardado, without even looking, he puts the ball, a diagonal ball, with the intention.
Unlike the last clip, the South Korean player here makes contact with the ball with the up arm as he slides to block this cross. The arm is extended vertically away from the body and is above his shoulder, both terms which fall under an infraction in the new wording. This is an infraction, and the penalty kick is properly given. Warrants mentioning here, had the ball hit the Korean player's down arm on this play, it also would have been a handling infraction. The down arm here is extended laterally from the body and is therefore not in a natural position. It is not being used to support the body. Exceptions for contact between the hand and arm are permitted when the hand-arm contact occurs coming from another player who is, quote, close. In this clip, the blue defender has his arm in a natural position and within what would be his normal silhouette. The ball is played from a distance of only 2 yards and with speed, giving the defender no time to get his arm out of the way. Importantly, the decision over what distance, ball speed, and arm position falls under an exception is completely subjective to the referee's opinion, but this clip is a nice example of a situation that can be defined as fair play with no offense.
Esse se movimenta ali ao lado da barreira. A cobrança não sai. Gaibor bateu na barreira. O chute para cima do Gaston Silva. Os jogadores reclamam um toque de mão. Aí a reclamação do Gaibor. Vamos ver mais uma vez. Pega no cotovelo do Henrique. Maurício Noriega. E está colado ao corpo.
We need to quickly address the concept of handling violations that occur in walls. When an attacking free kick is hit into a defensive wall, interpretation of the handling clause has been modified from instructions provided by U.S. Soccer back in 2010. Formally, a player who jumped and had the ball strike their hand would be considered an offense, even if that hand or arm was tucked within his or her silhouette. This is no longer the case. The only time a handling offense can now occur in a wall is if the player has the arm extended outside the silhouette, most commonly with the arm raised over the shoulder. In this clip, the player's arm is tucked in, so even though the ball strikes his arm as he is jumping, this is not an offense. His arm would have to be extended away from his body for an infraction to occur. There are a few more handling-related law changes that we need to mention. A clause has been inserted into Law 12 that clearly and distinctly notes the following. Quote, if the goalkeeper handles the ball inside their own penalty area when not permitted to do so, an indirect free kick is awarded, but there is no disciplinary sanction. For years, some officials have argued for the potential for dogso or stopping a promising attack, formerly known as tactical handling, punishments for goalkeepers who commit indirect free kick handling offenses within their own penalty area. Say a defender plays a back pass poorly and it's going to pop over the goalkeeper's head, so the goalkeeper leaps and knocks the ball out of the air with his or her hand before it goes into his or her own goal. These referees would argue this is an offense punishable by free kick that prevents a goal, and therefore it's a dogso offense, therefore the goalkeeper should be sent off. This new clause eliminates any potential for that. It clearly states the goalkeeper may not be carded when guilty of offenses relating to handling inside their own penalty area. Back passes, playing the ball with the hand from a throw-in, releasing the ball into play and then picking it up again, holding the ball for 6 seconds. None of these can ever result in a card of any color to the goalkeeper. Throughout the laws effective this year, the words, quote, deliberately handles the ball has been replaced with, quote, commits a handball offense. This is to maintain consistency with the changes outlined in Law 12. Handball offenses can now encompass far more than only situations involving deliberate handling. There are some significant changes in the handling clause of Law 12. The SRC is going to reach out to clubs and leagues to offer the opportunity to learn about these changes, but as with all of the law changes, we can guarantee that it will take some time in getting used to. The key instruction on the field is that not all handling violations now involve a deliberate play of the ball with the hand or arm. There are numerous situations that will involve accidental plays that are nonetheless outside of the spirit of the game and must result in a direct free kick or penalty kick.